So just a quick overview of today. We'll be going through some background information, then discuss the high-level goals of DASH, our associated challenges and actions to date taken by the network to address these goals and challenges. Then we'll move to our next steps and then a discussion. Next slide, please. So a little bit of background before we jump into the meat of the presentation. So DASH is a one-stop data access service portal and service for researchers requesting multi-regional health and health-related administrative data in Canada. We streamline the data access through a centralized form and service, and we harmonize this process across multiple data centers across the country. Next slide, please. So the DASH service wouldn't be successful without our member organizations, and specifically 13 data centers from across Canada that help support researchers with their data access requests for multi-regional health data. So for example, that includes provincial data centers like the Alberta Spore Unit, as well as pan-Canadian data centers like CIHI and Statistics Canada. Next slide, please. So to date, DASH has supported over 180 client queries. We've provided advice, feasibility assessments, as well as cost estimates for over 150 projects. Formally, we've supported over 28 data access requests, and we've completed about 12 multi-regional research projects to date, and more to come. Next slide. On average, we see about 25 requests for intakes each year. So that's when we provide project feasibility assessments and cost estimates. And we also support, next slide, please, around 5 to 6 data access requests each year. So this is supporting a project through its life cycle, from the very beginning stages of exploring what type of research project and data requirements the researcher is interested in, providing feasibility assessments and cost estimates, all the way to the end where we provide support for analysis. And this is, effectuated by the data centers at HDRN Canada. And right now we're trending upwards. So this year we're at 8 data access requests, which is exciting. Next slide, please. So of course, DASH has been formally in operation since 2020. As we continue to grow and evolve, we've been successful, but we're getting through more projects and incorporating lessons learned at each phase. And with the growth and evolution of DASH, there was a need to kind of review our existing organizational structure and make sure that we're continuously, improving, and as well as being efficient in the services that we're providing. And as well, the evolution of HDRN Canada has also resulted in new partners and new opportunities for streams of business. So it's always really important to kind of be mindful of our goals, as well as, how do we keep improving our services and supports. Next slide, please. So next, I'd like to speak to the high levels. Sorry, can you go back one slide? The high-level goals of DASH, are associated challenges in achieving these goals, and what actions has the network collaborated on to date to kind of help us move forward and be more efficient in our services provided. Next slide, please. So at a high level, I would say DASH currently is focused on 6 goals. That doesn't mean that as we evolve that there won't be more goals that we're trying to address. And there's also network goals that we're supporting as well. But generally speaking, our high-level goals include effectively facilitating multi-regional data access requests, providing excellent customer service, receiving a steady line of business, so queries, intake forms, data access requests, increasing the representation of provinces and territories in these requests so that we really are true to our multi-regional research requests. We are a part of a pan-collaborative network. And finally, that we continuously work and strive to improve our services, timelines, and knowledge. Now, I would say there's probably some more goals, certainly around that will come to fruition over the next couple of years around the work that IDEA is doing in terms of promoting idea and research. And I think we'll continue to evolve these goals as we progress forward as a network and more comes through around our idea strategy and the different strategic goals that the network has. We'll continue to evolve them. So next slide, please. So when we think about the first goal, which is effectively facilitating multi-regional requests, some key challenges that we've experienced to date around this goal has definitely been the timeliness of completing requests. So, we have been in operation for about 5 years. We definitely get very complicated, complex research projects that involve many provinces and territories. And so with that, we've done a lot of work around establishing service level agreements with each data centers so that we have about average timelines around how long certain processes should take and how long should we normally expect them to take on average. And so that helps us kind of troubleshoot any sort of delays and things that are going on. So we're continuously working on improving our timelines. The next piece around challenges is researcher readiness and awareness of DASH services. And of course, the requirements needed to partake in a multi-regional project. So, one of the key things that we've done to date is we've worked very closely with the communications team to establish a calendar of events and activities so that we're really doing our best to communicate with researchers these, baseline requirements so that they are ready when they come to us with a project. We've also worked very closely with the with the HDRN Canada data centers to understand and document, review their workflows, their requirements, and we're looking to make some improvements around making sure we have all those requirements in place, well documented for researchers so that they have that information on hand. And then finally, one of the I think biggest key challenges to effectively facilitating multi-regional requests has been the availability of data and services. And so in this past couple of years, the partnerships team has done a lot of work around building strategic partnerships with researcher cohorts such as the Canadian Longitudinal Study for Aging and CanPath to help streamline data access requests for this information with our data centers. So originally, some of these requests took a lengthier amount of time. As we work through more, we're becoming more and more efficient, and that's been a huge win for, Dash, for the data centers, and a big thanks to the work that's been led by partnerships team. And then finally, another key new field of interest, and especially with researchers, there's often a huge push to want to move line level data outside of provincial boundaries. So they often want to be able to pool data to do analysis and explore that information. And so that is definitely a key challenge with regulations and legislation across each province and territory. So Dash and MIG have been working very closely to look at and pilot and implement new methods such as distributed analysis that may address some of these challenges. Next slide. So the nice the nice thing about distributed analysis is you do not have to move line level data or pool data to be able to perform a similar type of analysis that would give you the same type of information and results as if you'd had pooled the data. You only have to really share um, aggregated statistical parameters. And so this can help sort of avoid challenges that we may experience around legislative barriers, around not being able to kind of share line level data outside of these provincial boundaries. This is like a new method. So what's really exciting is MIG and Dash are partnering this year to deliver a webinar to kind of um, make this awareness with our researchers that this is a possibility of a method that they could use to do analysis without pooling data, but having similar information and results. And we're also working very closely with the communications team to be able to produce information materials for both researchers, data centers around distributed analysis, and making this more culturally accepted with these audiences. And then I would say, finally, we're also, I know Meg has been doing a lot of work around providing more information to data centers about this method and answering their questions. So Meg has already presented to ISQ, and I think the plan will be to continue doing presentations with data centers so that everyone can kind of be onboarded into this new innovative technique. Next slide, please. Sorry, and when I say MIG, I meant Modeling and Informatics Group. So our next key goal is around providing excellent customer service. Some challenges that we faced around achieving this goal has been that although we've done a lot of great work around centralizing our forms and services, there are still some things that have partial harmonization at this point. For example, our approvals process is very localized. And again, this is to kind of respect, the local requirements as well as legislation. So we have started doing some exploration around options for harmonization of these processes. And I know that this is a big item on the privacy working group this year on their work plan. So really excited to see kind of what progress we can make, because it is definitely a challenge for researchers to have to complete um, their ethics approvals and certificates for multiple jurisdictions. So that would really simplify things on their end. The other piece is around sort of the administrative burden of our forms and the requirements needed to put a multi-regional research project in place. So one of the things that Dash has been actively working on this year is looking at making enhancements to our forms and services. We are starting with our intake form, and eventually in the next coming months, we will fix our data access request form, try to make it more user-friendly, more colorful, as well as like seeing if we can simplify requirements, checking in with the data centers to make sure we are in fact meeting all their needs when we're collecting this information from researchers, again, to reduce that administrative burden. And then finally, we are also looking at collecting enhanced information on the user experience of our Dash clients. So this year, there was a process where communications, partnerships, as well as the Dash working group looked at the sort of our current surveys and information that we're collecting on the user experience. And they made some enhancements that help support some work for the CFI application. And so we're going to take some of that work back and leverage some of those enhancements that were made and look at our own internal Dash user surveys and see if there's any enhancements that we can make to get a better and more relevant information on the Dash user experience. And so what's really exciting is it's a subgroup of Dash as well as partnerships is going to support this work. So we're really looking forward to that this year. Next slide, please. So this is just kind of a sort of a draft of where we're at. So our original intake form, you can see, was quite just very plain. We're working on making it more colorful, more clear for users. It's still in draft. We're working very closely with the developer to kind of make this enhancements, and there's a lot of testing that goes back and forth. And eventually, our goal will be to test the form with a few researchers just to make sure we didn't miss the mark on anything. And we're really looking forward to launching this new form in the spring and summer of 2025. Next slide, please. So our next goal is around receiving study business. One key challenge we face here is always going to be the availability of funding for researchers. And although we haven't immediately taken any action to address this at this point, we have raised it up to the network and the leadership team to consider this as a big challenge that we're facing. And internally, we're starting to think about, well, where can there be efficiencies around analysis and planning where we can maybe actually reduce those costs for researchers? So we're definitely thinking about this more and more. The other challenge we experience is, of course, demonstrating our value add for seasoned researchers who are used to kind of doing multi-regional research without the supports of Dash. So again, what we've done is we've collaborated with the communications team to build an infographic on the key messages and value of using Dash and how crucial it is to have that kind of centralization of services, and having those experts, those data center experts, all at the table, supporting the analytical plan, supporting the discussions to make sure things are harmonized for those researchers and their projects. And then as well, we're also, another action we're doing, and this is kind of like really network wide and led by the partnerships team, is considering new lines of business such as knowledge users, so decision makers, and the private sector. So this is sort of in sort of development with the partnerships team, and Dash is kind of keeping the pulse, and we're trying to kind of collaborate as much as we can on this. Next slide, please. So another key aspect or goal for us is really to support multi-regional research and increase the representation of provinces and territories in requests. Some challenges that I've already discussed is the availability of funding for researchers and the cost of multi-regional research. There's also the availability of data and services at each site, which can, may make a researcher choose a specific data center over another just based on these things. So some of the key actions that Dash has taken to date, and very closely in collaboration with the data centers, is doing more promotional activities within local regions. We're also starting to do more collaborative webinars with our partners like CanPath and CLSA. And organically, some things have happened as well where data centers have looked at options to increase sample sizes. So, for example, the Atlantic data centers have sort of had a discussion around, is there any way we could promote more multi-regional research by seeing if there's a way we could work together to increase our sample sizes. So these are kind of things that are happening in the background. Next slide, please. And as I was saying, like this year, we've done a lot of work to really promote the data centers at within each province and territory. Our webinars this year were hosted with HRDP Saskatchewan, which was great. They were able to promote how they now have more linkage opportunities to external data sets in this webinar. We also worked with ISQ, the Institute for Statistics in Quebec, where we talked about how they have new data available. And that's not just necessarily health data, but also social data. So that was like a great collaboration. There's also participation in of our Atlantic data centers in the Maritime Health Research Summit. There was the first project completed with Quebec. We also have the launching of the PEI Cider coming up this year. So there's a lot of things happening locally. I know Saskatchewan is planning to do more events and webinars. And so I think this is great to helping promote multi-regional research and specifically for newer data centers onboarding with the network. Next slide, please. So, of course, I would be remiss if I didn't include the fact that we want to be a part of a pan-Canadian collaborative team. Some challenges that we experience, of course, are around our distributed structure, capacity of work and workload, and of course, our strategic direction and funding. So, what we do within our team and across the network to sort of continue our collaboration is we have monthly touch points. So Dash and the working group leads and the leads, we meet monthly. We also have data center consultations each year where we can address specific challenges and issues that are ongoing with the data centers and around projects where we can really troubleshoot and leverage support where needed. We've also have reviewed our Dash terms of reference and membership this year just to make sure our conversations are meaningful and the right people are at the table. So we're doing a lot of work to kind of continuing to be collaborative. We also have a lot of roundtable discussions and engagement within the Dash working group, but also across the network. And so I'm looking forward to continuing to collaborate and, pursue this further. The next slide, please. And finally, we have this last goal, which is to continuously improve our services, timelines, and knowledge. So we see sort of the same challenges around our distributed structure, or capacity of workload, strategic direction, and funding. And some key actions we've taken this year around improving our services will be looking at collecting the Dash user experience information. Like I said, we have a subgroup of Dash and partnerships team that's going to be working on looking at the user experience information we're currently collecting and just making sure we're getting the most relevant information from our clients. The next piece is we have been actively doing more reporting and troubleshooting with Dash representatives and leads. And it's been really great. Like we've had a lot of support from the leadership team, helping us deal with any sort of issues around like timelines or project issues. They're helping us kind of troubleshoot problems as we go forward. Executive management team this year has been a huge blessing, especially for myself, to leverage that team on specific decisions, priorities. So it's been very, very helpful. That includes Dash, partnership, operations, and a couple of other members lead the way. And there's, of course, lots of around just continuously improving and reviewing sort of where we're at as a network. So you'll know that we are kind of at the SPORE CDP summative evaluation. So we're going to be kind of reflecting on our past years of service as a network and sort of where we want to go. There's also the Santis HDRN Canada strategic recommendations that were also helpful around helping HDRN Canada around our strategic directions. And so all this work is kind of really feeding into the different streams and working groups and how we can continuously improve our services, timelines, and knowledge and grow as a network. Next slide, please. So some key next steps, specifically for the DASH working group. Next slide, please. Oh, next slide, please. Oh, thank you. So our main focus up until the end here of like the spring is going to be to implement our new intake form and query form. So it's just a little bit of back and forth with the developer, making sure it's looking good, testing the bugs, but we're really excited about getting that launched this year. We're also gearing for the in-person leads meeting coming up in April. We have lots of events and activities coming up in the first. So like I said, we'll be working closely with communication to be present at Casper, the conference. We'll also be delivering webinar with Meg around distributed analysis in June. We're also going to be collaborating with ICES on a webinar in the summertime. So there's lots happening, and we're staying busy and trying to promote our services to researchers. We're going to be providing input for the SPORE CDP summative evaluation report. We're going to, work with a subgroup to kind of look at our user experience process. And then the big piece of work that we're going to be working towards this next year is really around the mapping of the data access request form. So that's going to be our huge undertaking this year, where we're going to kind of modernize and update that form and make sure it's meeting the needs of researchers and data centers. And yeah, there's constantly ongoing work. And I think a big thing is that we couldn't really be successful without all the support of the working groups, of the leadership team, of our data centers. And so we're just really grateful to be working with such a fantastic network of experts and individuals. So big thanks to everyone for your support. Next slide, please. Yeah, so we have a busy year coming. Sort of like I said, our main goal will be to kind of fix the forms this year and collect relevant user experience information. And then we'll continue on this journey as we move forward over time, and we'll keep evolving and hopefully keep seeing more requests come in, and new lines of service. Possibilities are limitless.